You're with Julian on the brown note. Confetti, glitter. So Labour won the election. What a weekend it was for us communists, us Marxist socialists that are trying to destroy Australia. So I called the election, and I was on this show, and it's online in June last year. So I've constantly gone on about how the media in this country are not only very pro-liberal, and you can include the Channel 9 TV station, newspaper group, including the Sydney Morning Herald, which is very pro-liberal despite what the pundits claim, the Murdoch Press, Channel 7 and Channel 10. But they've all been saying, they always say it's a close election, our elbows behind in the polls. Now, any normal election cycle that contained the Voice referendum, which was a disaster and which should have removed the leader of the party, and it didn't even touch him, which was an amazing thing, and I'll come back to that. But also a cost of living crisis where they inherited interest rate rises from Scott Morrison's Liberal government and got the blame for them, with also the inflation going through the roof at the end of Scott Morrison's Liberal government's term, so they got the blame for that, and the cost of living crisis. So for a government to come back with a second-term landslide majority, I predicted last June they would keep their majority. I didn't see the Liberals winning anything. But the increase has been jaw-dropping. Obviously, the first... Everyone's saying, that's, no first-term government's ever been turfed out. That doesn't really tell a story at all. Anyone that says that is full of it. Because if you look at Kevin Rudd, he didn't gillard a full term. You got Julia Gillard with a makeshift government made up of independents. And then you've got Tony Abbott not lasting a full term, Malcolm Turnbull not lasting a full term. Only one that did was Scott Morrison, who lost. So to say that no first-term government's been turfed out ignores the political turmoil of the last 20 years. But also a more accurate term would be that Albo won the first back-to-back election since John Howard 20 years ago. So it's a big deal. Anyone that didn't understand why Labour won, this began with Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison should never, ever have won that election. But he did because you dare come after juicy money and you'll pay. So Bill Shorten said, actually, I'm going to do these essential things, go after negative gearing, go after franking credits, and all this stuff that was essential to trying to make our economy fairer, and which is still essential to do and will still take 20 years to probably right the ship. They bullied him out of position. And we ended up with Scott Morrison. So the rot was already there. They should have lost that election. And then the next one they did. And anyone that thinks that they've made up ground in the interim just doesn't know politics. The media don't understand polls. The polling here is always very pro-liberal. I mean, even I called the election for Dan Andrews, for Albo last time as well, a long way out. And that's when they were behind in the polls. The polling does tend to seem to overstate support for the Liberal Party and understate support for the Labour Party. But the media here doesn't understand polling. You've actually got people that are saying, like people like Andrew Bolt saying, Dutton lost it because he was ahead in the polls 4 months ago. That's never what happened. He was never, ever going to win. If you've got an incumbent government in a cost of living crisis, they're going to be behind in the polls because they're the only people that you can vote against. No one's going to vote against the opposition party that aren't in power and that aren't doing anything. It is a protest vote. It's not real. And I've been saying for the last 6 months, the second that spotlight turns from Labour to Peter Dutton, everything's going to change in those polls. And it did immediately. The two factors that came up that were additional elements. One is that Peter Dutton ran the worst election campaign in opposition history in this country. It was a disaster from start to finish, from no policies to missteps to screw-ups to, the work from home thing. Everything was a disaster. Now, the Trump effect is being trumpeted as the big deal. without Trump, Labour still win their majority. They wouldn't have won it by as much, and that definitely added to the mix. Now, we've got the media in the Sky at Night gang. They're saying, you know, every single time that this happens, they say that the Liberal Party weren't right-wing populist enough. They cannot take the truth, which is it's their fault the Liberals lost, because Australia hates the populist right. And all these goons on Sky at Night, in the Murdoch press, all these fringe parties like Advance Australia, the public hate them. But they can't admit that. So you've already got Peter Credlin and Andrew Bolt coming out and saying that he lost because he wasn't Trumpy enough. And I pray as a Labour voter they continue down this path. But they're trapped because they've driven all the moderates out. The public have decided they want Captain Boring, a nice, genuine, boring, competent, kind person to lead the country that isn't in the front pages every single day like Scott Morrison was. That's what I want from a politician. Do your job competently. Don't be involved in sexism and rorting scandals every day with incredibly offensive goons on your squad that can't do their job. Do it all quietly in the background. That's what we all want. We have had a 10-year period of the most front page grabbing politicians, and we're all sick of it. I don't want them on the front page every day. Look at Trump in America. Every 5 minutes he's got to say something to put him on the front page. It's hell. And Albo has shown himself to be all of the things we want. You've even got his backers, the Liberal backers, Gina Rinehart, one of them, again, as blind as the media. She has come out saying exactly the same thing. In a statement shared publicly on her website, Gina Rinehart criticised the left media. We don't have left media in this country. The best you can do is a centrist ABC, which Labour supporters continually attack for being pro-Liberal, by the way. Rinehart suggested the Australian public was intentionally frightened by the media into thinking Mr Dutton was the bogeyman. I think that's the press being quite accurate for once. She criticised the Liberal Party for watering down their fundamentals in an attempt to steal Labour votes. The left media did a very good job frightening many in the Liberal Party away from anything Trump and ran away from Trump-like policies. She argued that basically Trump policies were what was needed. Like how to read the room. How deaf are these people? They can't backtrack because it's them. It's them that are losing every election. They can't admit that it's their own views that are. Like, for the Liberals, the Trump effect was terrible because they wanted to be Trump so hard. And then they got to the point of starting their campaign and found out that everyone hates Trump in this country. So they tried to backpedal on a lot. But to say that they weren't Trumpy is ridiculous. They went in with that work from home. They went in with the Doge thing with Jacinta. Was it Jacinta Price was going to be the Doge of Australia and gut public services? And then they basically said, oh no, everyone hates these policies. I mean, even right towards the end, Peter Dutton was trying to introduce anti-Semitism legislation into our, I'm going to take the passports back of brown-skinned Muslims that don't support Israel. We're going to put a new thing on the citizenship test saying, how do you feel about Israel? And so on. It's like, that's straight out of Trump's playbook. They were trumping all the way through. They just kept on trying to make it muted. If they'd have done it louder, they would have lost by more, Gina. And of course, they've got the Teals as well, where the Teals have just killed the Liberal Party by being, the Liberal Party pushed all of the moderates out. And all of the Malcolm Turnbull Liberals that support action on climate change, support gay marriage and stuff like that, got pushed out to the Teals. And under Dutton, the day he was announced leader, I just couldn't believe our luck as a Labour Party supporter, because there was no way this country was ever going to... They didn't learn a thing from Scott Morrison, and they probably won't learn anything today. There's no Reform UK party in Australia. Those parties, and Reform, has eaten into the Tory party in the UK to have a sizable component of the vote. We don't have that here. We have Clive Palmer getting 4 votes. We've got Pauline Hanson getting like 1% or something, of a few percent of the vote as the absolute winner of those fringe right-wing parties. Other ones just didn't get anything. The Liberal Party suffered from the Voice referendum more than the Labour Party did. I said at the time, Albanese has lost the battle but will win the war because he will be stained with doing the right thing. Whereas Dutton, wearing the I champion the no vote, will be stained with that. And it did hurt him, I believe. I don't think it was a good look. Even for people that oppose the Voice referendum, it's still not a good look. And the Labour Party were just so much more positive. It's normally said that parties that offer stuff for the future, positive stuff for the future, will always beat parties that offer very negative appraisals of what's happening. We're going to make Australia great again and so on. Doesn't always work, but it certainly did here. All the Labour Party did was, we're doing this for the future, we're doing this for the future. And they're like, the whole Liberal Party thing was get Australia back on track. To what? To Scott Morrison? No one wants to go on that track. I think we're just all sick of the circus, and that's wonderful. Ever since, and it was Labour first, the Rudd Gillard years, that caused the start of all this chaos, of leaders not even making a full term and being turfed out. Everyone's sick of it. And Albanese has come along and been quiet and competent and nice and genuine and led a tight ship. And everyone's gone, okay, that's great. The media here are wildly out of touch with public sentiment because they just don't get it. They exist in this 24-hour news cycle, and they focus on the issues that come up in that, and they don't see the long game at all. I did. Why can't they? Why can't they read polls like I can? They're on hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to do so. For the Labour Party, the Trump effect was obviously a good thing for them, because it has shown in Germany and Canada, well, particularly in Canada recently, where the Labour Party, not really, but the left party, were 27 points behind at Christmas and won, which I said a few weeks ago they would. Because no one wants that. And the very loud populist right voices in this country think that the public do. They think that they are populist, but they're not. They're the minority. And Albanese has, like someone I slagged off so much in the campaign against Scott Morrison, asking for him to be removed because he was such a bad campaigner, is a different man now. I said he would be a good Prime Minister, but he would never get there because ScoMo was dancing him around in circles until every single week was a new calamity. And then Albanese reversed to victory. But he has grown into the role like no one has. Even Malcolm Turnbull seemed like he was in it for himself. Albanese seems like the first good person we've had as leader, probably since Julia Gillard was a good person, but who wasn't, who could build a dynasty, a political dynasty in this country. All that Labour have to do to win the next election is avoid complacency and scandals, really. I'm not going to do a piece on that in a couple of tracks' time, but they just need to avoid complacency, and we have got a golden era of the Labour Party in this country.